Also on mute.
Okay, here.
Thank you. Joe Panetta,
Here.
Francisco Prieto, Robert Quint.
Here.
Thank you. Al Roulette,
Here.
Jeff Sheehy,
Here.
Stewart. I see you, but I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm here on both phone and.
I can hear you. You sound good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm going to have a problem with my phone, which I'm going to have to use. So you guys are going to have to call me again. For whatever reason, it doesn't work on the phone. So.
Okay. All right. Jonathan Thomas,
Here.
Art Torres,
Here.
Diane Whitaker. Present. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So first action item is, as has been the case with each of these meetings, consideration of existence of emergency situation. Emergency situation means any of the following is determined by a majority of the members of the ICOC. A, work stoppage or other activity that severely impairs public health or safety or both. B, crippling disaster that severely impairs public health or safety or both. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Move. This is Oz.
So moved by, I think Oz, and seconded by David, or the other way around.
Doesn't matter.
Go with the first. Maria, will you please call the roll?
Anne Marie,
Yes.
Isabel Duron,
Yes.
David Higgins,
Yes.
Steve Julesgaard,
Yes.
Dave Martin. I think David's on, but we cannot hear him. Let me see if we can see him. Can't see him either. Okay. Lauren Miller. Adriana Padilla.
Yes.
Joe Panetta.
Yes.
Francisco Prieto. Robert Quint.
Yes.
Al Roulette.
Yes.
Jeff Sheehy.
Yes.
Stewart. Yes. Jonathan Thomas.
Yes.
Art Torres.
Aye.
Diane Whitaker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we had another very robust discussion at the GWG this Tuesday, which featured some surprises, including Mark Noble, who had composed an original song for the and sang it to the GWG, which was quite something. In any event, we're going to proceed to item number 4, consideration of applications submitted in response to special call for COVID-19 projects. Turn the meeting over at this point to Mr. Sheehy.
Thank you, JT. Dr. Sembrano, are you going to lead us through a discussion on the round?
Yes, Mr. Sheehy.
Thanks, Gil.
Okay. So Doug, could you put up the slide deck, please? So a lot of what I'm going to review initially is just, again, the background on this program. As you know, if you go to the next slide, Doug, we issued the call for COVID-19, and when we started, this will be the last cycle in which we use our partnering opportunities from discovery to CLIN 2, because as you know, in the previous board meeting, we expanded it to include DISC 1 and made some other changes. So this still follows the slightly older program announcements, and $5 million was set aside in order to support it. Next slide, please. So a reminder of the programs that are covered in this cycle. We happen to have a lot of discovery applications that that came in. We also had one translational clinical trial that were reviewed. The maximum award amounts for these, which are modest, are shown, as well as the approximate award duration for these. Next slide, please. And also, as you know, we have, because of the urgency of this program, included a requirement that all proposals achieve a clear deliverable within 6 months. So depending on the type of program, those are shown here. So in total, we ended up with 10 applications that were reviewed this cycle. As I mentioned, 1 Clin 2, 1 Tran, and the rest of them discovery. Next slide, please. So the outcome and the recommendations from the grants working group are as follows. There were 2 applications, 1 Tran and 1 DISC, that fell into the recommended for funding range. And so the total applicant requests for those 2 applications is about 500,000, and the funds available or remaining in the program are about 2.5 million. So the next slide, please. The first application that was recommended is a Tran 1 11975. So this is an application that received a score of 85. And so the goal of this application is to test a small molecule drug candidate, which is for Zosertib. And so this small molecule has the potential to block a critical step in viral replication and potentially block viral growth, and ultimately in this way protecting lung progenitor cells. And so that's the Tran 1 project. There's a discovery project 11838. And so that one is developing quite a unique vaccine biologic. The goal of this one is to create an artificial antigen presenting cell. So this is a biomaterial platform essentially, and it has several components to it that together, when introduced into a patient, would help induce T memory stem cells to boost the immune system against SARS-CoV-2. And this may be particularly helpful in the elderly population where that function is not as well developed. So those are the 2 proposals. And Doug, if you could put up the spreadsheet, we can show the remaining applications that were reviewed and their respective scores. So Mr. Sheehy, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Simbrano. So could I get a motion to move any of the applications in the unfundable range into the fundable range if there's a desire to do so? Hearing none, could I get a motion to not fund the applications in the unfundable category, and then we'll just deal with the 2 in the fundable range?
I move.
Second.
So I think it was moved by Ms. Duran, is that correct? And the second,
Anna Marie. Yeah, by me, Henry.
sorry.
No problem.
And the second was from
Al Roulette.
Al Roulette. Thank you, Al. Is there any board comment? Any public comment?
Hey, Doug, can you let me know if you see any hands?
No.
Okay.
Could you call the roll, please, Maria, Ms. Bonneville?
Anne-Marie Dulege,
Yes.
Isabel Duron,
Yes.
David Higgins,
Yes.
Steve Julesgard,
Yes.
Dave Martin. Dave, you're on. Can I see you? Oh, wait, hold on. I think I saw you. Dave, thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Lauren Miller.
I just came back. I unfortunately, I don't know what we're voting about. So unfortunately, I think you're going to have to.
Okay, no problem. Adriana Padilla,
Yes.
Joe Panetta,
Yes.
Francisco Prieto, Robert Quint,
Yes.
Al Roulette,
Yes.
Jeff Sheehy,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas,
Yes.
Art Torres,
Aye.
Diane Winokur.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now, I think we'll start with the one that scored highest. Do I have an application? Do I have a motion to either fund or not fund DISC 19-11838, the biomaterial vaccine to enhance the formation of SARS-CoV-2 specific T memory stem cells?
So moved.
And I'd like to make a comment. This is Isabel.
Sure. So let's maybe we can get a motion on the table. Chairman Thomas, was that a motion to approve?
Yes.
Do I have a second for that?
Yeah, I second, Anne Marie.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ong.
The research group sent in comments about plans for outreach to the underserved communities, which I appreciate, but I don't think it goes far enough. And I don't know if we can say something about this, have a side vote on this, amend our amendments about this. But I would like to see an actual more firm data presented by these to show exactly what they're doing in terms of working in these underserved communities. I have seen over and over where we're told they'll ensure diversity. To me, that doesn't go far enough. You might put one or two people of color in it and from different organizations, and you call that diversity. They meanwhile say our findings show that our community and our approach offer the possibility to address underserved communities and underrepresented minorities. Possibility for me is not good enough. Given that if you look at the death rates, and they propose to do this in order to address issues for elderly and those most impacted. If you look at the death rates, this comes out of UCLA, the Center for the Study of Latino Health and Culture, that did a stratification by race, ethnicity, and age for people over the age of 65. Non-Hispanic whites, death rate was 10.4. For Hispanic, it was 18.6. For Black non-Hispanic, it was 31.3, and for Asian non-Hispanic, 16.4. For those between the ages of 50 and 64, for white non-Hispanic, it was 1.4, and for Hispanics, it was 3.5. They didn't have enough data on Black and Asian communities to put it here. But obviously, it is the minority, non-racial and ethnic groups who are being most heavily impacted. So I would like to see when these plans are reviewed, when they, bless you, when they have proposals that they show us very specifically the proportionate number that they will be including in their designed plans, that the reviewers can see and can recognize that they're now going to they're going to get past possibility, and that in fact they're looking at very specifically, and I think that these communities actually have to be oversampled in order for us to get to a place where there's equity in care, in testing, in vaccines, et cetera, for these populations who are obviously the ones most under attack by this virus. And so I would like it once again, I don't know if it's an amendment, help me here, or if it's notes, or if it becomes part of codification of our RFPs, but saying that you will look, try to be diverse is not good enough for me. And I hope that others of you understand why, given the data that I just presented. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. I wonder, Dr. Sombrano, and also, frankly, if any of the members of the board might have a way in which we can perhaps offer some language to nail down what Mr. Ron is talking about. I know that I did read the statement from the applicant, but obviously I'm not well versed enough in this to be able to be able to put together something that actually captures what Mr. Ron is asking. Could we get some help perhaps?
I don't think we need a board language. I think more we need is for Isabel to come up with a language that she feels comfortable with, get it to Gilbert, and then Gilbert has a conversation with the grantees across the board. I mean, we've already set in motion before that we agree with the Duran amendment. It's now a matter of putting it in somewhat in writing and then let Gilbert negotiate with the grantees that, you know, this is what we expect.
Well, Senator Torres, I think that is a great idea, but I think per the specific application, there is a discussion of HLA types.
Right.
And there has been some, there was a paper published, and we had this discussion on our prior vaccine candidate, that the HLA types that you use in developing your vaccine need to be appropriate to the epidemiology of the epidemic that we're seeing.
Right.
We're seeing.
They need to be.
And it's unclear to me when I read this statement, and I think that's what Ms. Duran is alluding to, how successfully the applicant addresses that issue. And I think that's perhaps where we're looking for some clarity and to make sure that match with the data that Ms. Duran has presented that shows that the epidemiology of the epidemic, of this pandemic, it is disparate in impact on different racial groups, that's reflected in the models that they test this vaccine in.
Right. I think that's the information I sent her from, I think so. Is that the same information I
Yes.
sent from Professor Bautista?
Uh-huh.
Hayes Bautista, right. So maybe, why don't I turn around and get together with David and then come back with you with some language that you can look at, Isabel, and then we go from there.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciated that Gil said that reviewers were to include this as part of their looking at scoring. And I don't know if that got to them on time, but I would like to see that as part of the scoring method when we get that one sheet. I would like to see that there, that they've actually taken a look at the proportionate engagement and inclusion of these underserved communities, so that we can see that they actually took a look at that piece and that they recognized that it had a low or a high score and that it was being thoughtfully done. So can we get that in there too?
We can get anything you want in there. Secondly,
So this is Gil. I just wanted to clarify. So we have put a requirement in for all clinical trial proposals that they must include a clear plan of outreach and how they're going to include patients, from underserved communities and those that are disproportionately affected. Now, for the remainder of the types of applications we get, so for example, this is a discovery application, although I think many of the reviewers have this in mind and are actually vigilant of the fact that COVID-19 impacts on underserved populations, and they have included it in their review. It has not been a specific requirement for applicants to include that in their application. However, as we did with the last application in the last cycle, we asked an applicant to include a supplement that would broaden the HLA subtypes that they included in their studies. We could do the same thing here as an approach to try to remedy that, but we have not yet included this as a broad requirement across all applications.
We had Mr. Chairman, if I may, we had a similar problem, as I think I cited earlier, with some of our clinical trials that didn't have Native Americans within their trial. And now we're seeing the Navajo Nation, we're seeing other reservations in California that I'm aware of, where the propensity of infection rate is very, very high. So we need to be careful on making sure that we go beyond the HLA designation, because that really only includes Asian and white folks. It doesn't include anybody else.
I think Oz had a comment, Jeff.
Yeah, yes, I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, sorry.
So this is complicated. And it really reflects importantly on two competing considerations here. One is the very important consideration that Isabel raised and we've been discussing about the importance of making our therapies available broadly across the groups who need those therapies. At the same time, we're talking here about early stage grants that don't have a lot of money. And actually it's fine to have these requirements in clinical trials because basically you're talking about involvement of people. The problem here is feasibility. You have an approach here that is proposing to do X, and they have done this based on the HLA focus that is most available, shall we say, the fastest, and the most scientifically valid at this point. You can't just expand the project into domains beyond the feasibility and not impact on the probability of success. You know, everybody looks at these grant applications and says, can they actually do this? And if they're proposing it too much, the answer is no. What we're looking for here is rapid progress in a 6-month time frame and the expectation that that is going to lead to the second stage of funding. And we can't ask them to just do everything all at once here. So I just will say that this is not something that we can solve by just imposing some kind of a requirement on the grantee. We can't have Gil solve this by saying, oh, you have to do all this, because they can't with the money that we're giving them. So honestly, we either need to disapprove it and ask them to come back, or we need to approve it with a strong message that we would like to see that. But I don't think that we can impose any contingencies at this point. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that was a long comment.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. I wonder, it might help if I understand the applicant is on the line, and maybe we could hear from the applicant and get some clarification on the statement that the applicant sent and how they are addressing the issue. I don't know if that's Dr. Lee or someone else. Is the applicant on the line?
My understanding was that the applicant was on the line. Doug, do you see?
If you are on the phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and we will unmute your line for comment.
Well, we weren't really going to public. I thought the applicant was on the line.
My understanding was
applicant is on the line here.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Please, could you?
Hi, yes. Yes, this is Dr. Song Lee from Bioengineering at the UCLA. Yeah, I appreciate the comments. For this discovery application, we will not require to include outreach activities. And I think after we got a score, I was recommended to add this supplement, although it's required for the trans grants. And this is forward-looking. I think will prepare us for the next phase of studies. In the current discovery grant, we have 150 budgets. We plan to develop the product, and then we are do a small sample for human samples. So I think we are going to definitely include the statement is to show that we can have access to all of these samples with a diverse, race, gender, etc. So I think this statement will serve as a guideline for this phase, a small sample study, and also for the next phase. We hope to be able to reach. So I think if appropriate, we could get this approved and we move on to prove the feasibility as we just discussed. And afterwards, we're going to focus on the larger scale clinical sample studies.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Does that kind of answer folks' questions?
Jeff, Isabel, may I say something?
Please.
I appreciate what Dr. Lee has to say, and I also appreciate what Oz has to say, because that is one of the reasons why I've said from the very beginning when I raised this issue was that wherever appropriate throughout any of the RFPs that we put out, that this be part and parcel of the RFP, so that it's not a, oh, you asked me to do this now when it wasn't in the RFP. And so I think I'll go back to what Art said. Maybe we can look at this, talk about this some more, and bring it back to the board for full consideration, because I know it's not the time to have that. But I do appreciate what Dr. Lee is saying, but I'm thinking that's because we're not being clear out front and really getting all this just as a matter of course in our RFPs across the board. And I'm hoping we'll be around long enough to be able to do that in the future. So thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Thanks, Art, and thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you. Do we have further board comment about this application? Do we have additional public comment? So we have an motion to fund this application. Could we call the roll on this, please, Ms. Bonneville?
Yes. Anne-Marie Dulege,
Yes.
Isabel Duran,
Yes.
David Higgins,
Yes.
Steve Julesgaard,
Yes.
Dave Martin. Yes, thumbs up, okay. Lauren Miller, Adriana Padilla,
Yes.
Joe Panetta,
Yes.
Francisco Prieto, Robert Quint,
Yes.
Al Rolette,
Yes.
Jeff Sheehy,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas. JT, you're on mute.
Yes.
Art Torres,
Aye.
Diane Winokur.
Yes.
Thank you. The
Maria,
motion
I
carries.
didn't hear an answer from Anne Marie. Did we get a vote
Yes.
from Anne Marie?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one remaining application. Could I get a motion either to approve this application for funding or to not approve it for funding?
Approved for funding, moved. This is David in San Diego.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Joe.
Great. Do we have any board discussion around this application? Is there any public comment around this application?
No.
Could we call the roll then, please? The motion is to approve this application
Right.
11975.
Right.
Anne-Marie Dulege,
Yes.
Isabel Duran,
Yes.
David Higgins,
Yes.
Steve Julesgaard,
Yes.
Dave Martin. Yes. Lauren Miller, Adriana Padilla,
Yes.
Joe Panetta,
Yes.
Francisco Prieto, Robert Quint,
Yes.
Al Rolette,
Yes.
Jeff Sheehy,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas,
Yes.
Art Torres,
Aye.
Diane Winokur.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Bonneville. Chairman Thomas, this concludes the business of the Application Review Subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheehy. That, I believe, makes projects 10 and 11 that the board is now funded in this COVID round. And we will have more to entertain, presumably in 2 weeks. Thank you all for your discussion as always. We're now at the public comment portion of the meeting. Does anybody on the phone wish to make a comment on any matter whatsoever? Hearing none, that concludes today's emergency meeting. Thank you all very much.
Really quickly,
Yes.
our next board meeting is June 26th. It's a full board meeting, and it will be a few hours. So settle in to your comfy seats on Zoom. So thank you.
What time, Maria?
I believe we'll start around 9 or 9:30. I haven't confirmed with JT and Maria yet. So I'll follow up with you guys on that timing, and we'll send something out by
Unless
Monday.
board members want to come in earlier.
Okay.
I may come in later. That's why I asked.
So some early, some late. I'm
I
gonna,
have-
I'm
I
gonna
have
win
another
some, I'm
board
gonna
meeting.
lose some. I don't know. I don't know what to do. There's too many of you.
I have another board meeting that morning. That's why.
Okay,
Take care, everybody.
thank
Okay,
you.
thanks,
Bye.
thanks,
Talk to you
everybody.
later, Art. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.